What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at SoundHound AI stock, ticker symbol SOUN, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Thursday, March 21st. Alright guys, SoundHound stock here today, down 40 cents a share. That's minus 4.8% in regular trading hours. It's up a little bit after hours, but essentially flat here. One thing I would like to point out just to start today's video, we did actually see kind of an interesting scalp opportunity. You see this little first initial sloppy bounce, sloppy, cleanup, and then this test here. This actually offers some nice scalping opportunity, at least out of my personal playbook. Those are the kind of setups that oftentimes get alerted to the gold server. But let's get started here with our daily volume profile analysis ritual on the 5-minute chart. So moves that I'm primarily interested in looking at here today is going to be that fade, pop, and fade we got off the open, and then this upside move that we got into the close. I suppose we could also circle this downside fade that we got as well. Let's start now here from left to right. So interestingly, we got a decrease in volume. We had a little bit, just the smallest amount of buying bias on that upside move, but you guys know I'm always looking for 3 or 4 consecutive out of context candles. We didn't really get that off the open, so let's move on from there. On this fade that we got intraday, kind of around that lunch hour, you know, we had a few break up higher volume green bars. Without those kind of random almost pops in volume, I would be circling this here, but to be honest with you, you know, that is not entirely out of context considering we had 3, 4, 5 volume pops kind of surrounding that. Okay, now the low of the day, 747, this candle here, it actually turned out to be a green candle. We did see big volume, but understand that's over 5 million shares. Understand that's going to be a battle candle, being a wick candle on both sides and having the low of the day. You're going to have a lot of buying and selling volume on a single candle, which pumps that volume through the roof. And then once we moved on, we did see a little bit of buying bias. It faded quickly, but I would say, I mean, listen, this one here, there's not a lot I can pull out of that because I know that was a battle candle and we have to remain unbiased. I would say there's a very, very small amount of bullish bias here, but truthfully, guys, not enough for me to go out of my way to really make a big deal out of that. Now, bulls. The stock's down 4.8% today. A lot of people would go into a volume profile analysis here today and expect major bearish volume or major bearish bias in the profile. It's not actually really what we got. There's actually very minimal bias to either direction when we start peeling back the onion and looking at the actual volume profile here. Which if you're a bear, you know, you won the day in terms of price movement, but that might be slightly disappointing if you are bearish here on SoundHound. Now let's move on here to the 30-minute chart and take a look at the psychological self-fulfilling prophecy levels here today. You know, remember guys, from yesterday, Tuesday, right? We broke downside through that 50 period after trying to make a reclaim, struggled to do so. We made another attempt today, ended up giving up both of those moving averages here now. So listen, in terms of the 30 minutes specifically tomorrow, the name of the game, bulls, is ideally a reclaim of both of those. It is a 3.84% move to the upside away to reclaim not only the 50, but also the 200. The 50 itself is a much smaller feat. It's about 1.4% to the upside. But bulls, we're heading into that with a slight disadvantage, right? Because we're beneath both of them. An upside breakthrough both would be ideal, but it needs to really be on high volume, okay, or slightly above average volume at least. A low volume pullback to whichever moving average would be first at that time, because we may see the 50 curl upside on a big upside move and cross back over. A retest, and then ideally on low volume, and then a high volume pull away. Okay, bears, your ideal scenario here on the 30-minute chart would be an upside test of the 50 and just a hard high volume rejection, kind of like what we saw heading into the close here today, dragging that 50 period down with the stock. Now, the 4-hour chart here, let's take a look. You can see that we are pulling back to the 50 period bulls. This one's really simple here. You can see this is continuing upside. You're going to want to see that maintain an upside trend on the 50 period here on the 4 hour. Any downside test of that, any volume I'm fine with, as long as we see a slightly above average volume or high volume bounce away. Just kind of claiming that, hey, we're not ready to break downside below that 50 period on the 4 hour because this has a lot of eyeballs. But hey, bears, a downside break of the 50 period on the 4 hour is something we haven't really seen since earlier in the month. Okay, at least a few weeks ago. So bears, you're looking here at approximately, a 7% downside move to make that happen, just to make a test. So that's a big ask. It's kind of a tall order for a single day move. But, bears, your ideal scenario here as soon as possible would be to break downside through that 50 period on the 4 hour chart. Just understand that, we've seen crazier things out of SoundHound, but that's a big move. That's a big ask if you're a bear. And bulls, that being the case, ideally we would just see a pull away back up above $8 a share and have that 4 hour kind of come to us rather than having to meet it, down that many percentage points to the downside. All right, now, the most important chart of all, the daily. Okay, if there's one chart you do not skip, don't skip the daily here. Guys, the story here tomorrow is really simple. Tomorrow is the battle of $8 a share. Okay. We've now come into it. All right. Yesterday we were looking at around 850, 8 to the downside, 9 to the higher end. Tomorrow is the battle of 8. Okay. Bulls, $8 a share is that psychological level in the short term that we don't really want to give up. Okay. We've given it up today, but it's a first day break. It doesn't, in my head, it's not quite as definitive until we see 2 or 3 days of confirmation. So bulls, tomorrow, making the case from when a big sample size comes in intraday, that, hey, we're not ready to break downside below 8. That would be a good thing to see if you're a bull. Bears, really simple. Any retest of $8 a share, high volume on a rejection is your best case scenario if you're a bear, because that just goes to show, hey, even in second day after the break, we're still confirming we're cool in the 7s. That's what the sample size is saying. And if you're a bear, that's really what you want to see. If you're a bull, it's kind of the opposite of what you'd like to see, right? If you're a bull, you'd really prefer to see some dip buying in the 7s and sellers not really willing to either enter short or, sell for any less than $8 a share. Now, the option bias here on SoundHound today. We had 154,000 total contracts traded, 100,000 calls, and about 54,000 puts. That's a relatively heavy call side bias here today, but that short-term speculator delta range of 0 to 20, we had just under 17,000 calls and just over 12,000 puts. So we're seeing a call side bias in not only the overall ratio, but also that short-term speculator category. Listen, if you have not done so already, on your way out, please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.